it's me again. Take 5. I've recorded this so many times now, and I just did this 2 times earlier. I got about 4 minutes in and realized that this microphone was like pointed that way. Okay. No, I'm completely sober actually. I need a drink. Okay, now we're cooking. Oilco has come out. The PR was released in December, much to the dismay of many shareholders. Things are crunching down. Meta more or less has been lackluster in performance, stock-wise. The company is still getting off the ground. But there has been no major, big PR release. No really big contracts or agreements that have come out. Meta is still getting off the ground. That would be all and well, but consider that a lot of this was paid for by the shareholder, by the retail shareholder. As Torchlight back in June did the offering, and they raised $250 million for Meta to expand their company. That was paid for by the retail shareholder. So the many retail shareholders are very upset at this point. And as George hoped, he hoped in that recording back in May that people would take their dividend money and reinvest it in Meta. So far, there's no dividend money. We have to wait until at least next year. We have this PR come out about Oilco being a wholly owned subsidiary of Meta. And conveniently, it wasn't released until right after the annual meeting was adjourned and the votes were cast and tallied. That raised a lot of suspicion with the shareholders, and there was no statement saying why it was done then, which is interesting because, there's no PR statement about why it was done. Why couldn't this be done after the drilling clause agreement came out, the update on the drilling? Why couldn't Oilco be talked about then? It was certainly around. Now, let's answer a question briefly. Is Oilco Torchlight 2? There are some cases for Torchlight 2, such as the upper management wants to drag this on. They want to screw us over again. Those frustrations are very palpable, and they come with reason. Your concerns are heard by me. I consider them valid concerns. People are frustrated at this point. People feel like they have been led on. People are waiting for this dividend. We were told a dividend of some sort. Either a cash, spin out, maybe stock sale, as talked about by John Berta 2 years ago. A stock sale, which would at this time actually yield more benefits to you. And we'll go over that in a bit. So there's a lot of fun about this being Torchlight 2. And today we're going to go over that and reasons that show that this has a high probability of not being Torchlight 2. I'll use words like probability because nothing's set in stone. Of course, you can be upset. That's okay. I'm not saying that you can't be upset. You can be upset. It's okay to be upset. Okay, well, before I turn into Therapy Bird, let's get into it. I mean, there's Therapy Gecko, the Lyle. I posted about him too. I'm like, I feel like I've actually Lyle the Gecko, but I do stocks. Maybe I'm this bird who is Therapy Bird. Let's get into it. Reasons why Oilco could be torched too. There's a new permanent management team with experience. And nobody wanted to buy the land anyways, and records show it hasn't been sold. Those are the two biggest cases that this could be Torchlight 2. While land out there is largely undeveloped, because the hot plays are the Permian, there's a high chance that you're not going to see this land being sold until after the drilling clause is completed and it's been signed off, and we shall get an update soon about that by the end of the year, hopefully. So when in the previous case studies that I've done, where there were buyers who took control of the property, that property was not sold until after the deal was closed. It's once the deal is closed and the property is transferred over. Buyers had taken control of the assets. This could be a little bit different, actually, where they've been around, you know, they've been there for some time, and there's not any production really on the land yet. Hence, they're just kind of there kicking the tires. And maybe they are there requesting that the other wells be recompleted, or they wanted to see the wells being drilled themselves to watch. And that's why there was this few month delay with getting those wells recompleted, because if you had to get those wells drilled, those test wells drilled, why didn't they do this back in August? Why did they wait until October to do this? Maybe they were waiting for the potential buyers to come and be there as well. So just because there is no, official document saying that the land's been transferred, like I said, the world of oil is very hush-hush, and they tried to keep as quiet as possible. If you could look at the records easily, then people would have known who bought the Shell asset, and there was a lot of media digging for that, who bought the Shell asset, and nobody knew until it was announced. People were still speculating that Devon and Chevron, along with ConocoPhillips, were still out there looking at the property. I will also like to edit here, I keep editing in stuff, that all these oil companies beat earnings in Q3. And then Q4 starts in October. So it's once that the oil companies had beat earnings and they knew that they had the profits and they were going to do the share buybacks. And they were announcing this. This is when companies started announcing this, was late October, early November. That's when, they wanted to come out now and see the property being worked on so they can watch, they can be there to experience, take notes. That timeline sort of lines up, looking back on it, knowing what we know after we've gathered the information, that waiting until October rather than doing this in July, waiting until October sort of lines up with waiting until after the Q3 results with the oil companies and that they beat earnings. That now they're serious. It's seriously being going rather than doing it back in August when Hudspeth operations was filed. There's a 2-month window there, and that sort of syncs up with the waiting period to wait for the oil companies to, finish up their Q3 results. Okay. John Berta says wait a few weeks. He's not worried. In order for the land to be spun out or sold, you have to complete the continuous drilling clause. And of course, once Meta merged with Torchlight went bye-bye. And thus, to complete this, you needed the new Hudspeth. Okay, great. But now we have Oilco. And the mistake I made was I thought that it would stay with Hudspeth, and then we just get the shares from Oilco. But all the shares have to go into Oilco. Why? Well, those were those options trading, right? Remember the options? And then it inadvertently led to MMTLP trading. And now you can't really do what the original plan was in order to have a true preferred share. and then announce the amount of the dividend, right? That's not according to the actual original plan that was supposed to happen. The original plan that was supposed to happen was, you bought Torchlight, you held through the dates, you got the shares, and then, you would get the special dividend. The delay of metamaterials listing on the NASDAQ inadvertently caused delays, which led to the allowance of the trading of the options. Once options were traded and the Torchlight converted to preferred, that's when the preferred shares started to trade illegally on the NASDAQ, was through these options. Recap of the last episode. And now, the original plan is, once MMTLP starts trading, the original plan goes bye-bye. But we already had Oilco. We already had Oilco before MMTLP came about. Oilco coming about suggests that, yes, the company was aware that MMTLP was a good possibility. Like I said, they're smart people, but there's been a distinct lack of transparency. Why doesn't Meta want Oilco? Well, Oilco right now is a holdings company. A holdings company means they don't really sell or produce anything. They just hold and control the stock. They're holding and controlling the stock of the Torchlight assets. So if Metamaterials has Oilco, what makes Metamaterials then? Is it a holding? Is it like Berkshire Hathaway? If Metamaterials has this oil company, what does it really make them? It doesn't really make them a Metamaterials company. They have this oil company sitting around. Yeah, it's a subsidiary. But how is oil related to Metamaterials? From a venture if I was a venture capitalist looking at this, I said, well, how is this related? Okay, that's great, you have it, but how is this related to Metamaterials? A lot of investors, their current issue that prevents them from investing in Metamaterials is not knowing what the company does. I've shown Metamaterials to other investors, and they say, well, is this an antenna company? Is this a heads-up display company? What does this company actually do? The concept of Metamaterials is very new still. It's like telling somebody about... It's a very new concept. And I'm sure that in 30 years it will be much easier to explain. For now, all that we got is, it's plastic. Or, it's how wood used to be everything. Well, it's wood, it's plastic, it's metamaterials. Meta also acquired the AR glasses company from Switzerland. This synonymously lines up with their goal of being a one-stop augmented reality shop, because the augmented reality technology really relies on metamaterials and the lenses. So it lines up, and as Meta stated, that the AR is really going to be the low-hanging fruit, and it's going to be a really good source of cash flow for the company. These acquisitions merge into, Metamaterials' bottom line here. Metamaterials' company statement, their company mission. Where does oil really fit into that? The goal of the executives of Torchlight was to sell the assets. Let's look at this PR statement from their investor presentation. They say that they want to sell it for stock. Let's look at this PR from John Berta, where he gives an in-person interview with a guy. He says the ultimate goal was he'd like to sell it for stock because it creates a non-taxable event. Another case, what happened to those buyers? What? Yeah, what happened to the buyers? What do you mean? Well, okay. Yes, there are several parties involved. I mean, that can be University Lands, McCabe. McCabe is a royalty holder. Founders, Oil and Gas, which has stakes. It can be all the staked interest. Again, Maverick, which did some of the debt conversion to working interest on the property. There can be a lot of different there's a lot of different interests in this party, and oil royalties can get pretty convoluted. There's a couple of McCabe cases out there about that, and people can get upset. Much like the lien, as stated in the SEC 10Q filing, the lien it was a very small lien on Torchlight lands that's pretty easily negotiated, I think. That actually happens quite a bit. And McCabe is well versed in that. Actually, that happens a lot. It's happened a lot when you have a lot of convoluted parties involved with royalties and assets. It's the nature of the beast. The goal of Torchlight was to sell the property. How does Oilco work to our advantage today? Well, because those options were trading, we have to wait. The 250 million shares of Oilco sort of matches up when you consider the fact that the holding dividend, the holdback dividend, is 10%. 10% of 250 million shares is 25 million shares. To me, that sort of makes sense where the 10% is. Oilco, again, is a holding company. They're holding the assets. So why do we have Oilco? Well, let's listen back to this audio clip from George back in May. This was pre-Oilco. This was, again, like I said, after they decided on the fact that they need to raise more money with Torchlight, which resulted in $250 million from metamaterials. But this was after the fact, because when I listened to it and I did the math as in this video, I realized, wait, those 20 being the low number synced up with there already being that many shares to 165 million at the price of oil at the time, which was around $60 a barrel. But let's listen to that clip again from George. I have edited it a bit. I don't move things around. It's still linear, but I've taken out some extraneous conversation that doesn't really pertain to the dividend amount. Let's listen.
The challenge, let's say. It is in every document and communication filed officially or even press releases that there will not be a dollar amount press released until we sell the assets. According to the schedule, the assets need to be sold in about 6 months' time.
Yeah.
As you know, when Torchlight decided to sell the business, let's say to change 180 degrees their business model and find a company like us, they looked at many different companies. They selected us, we selected them, and today, the price of oil from one 12-month period went from negative to being, let's say, in a good momentum.
Yeah.
So the more time that goes by over the next 6 months, I can tell you that Torchlight management is speaking to the right potential buyers, that they're top tier. It's very difficult because buyers have their own different motivations, and they'll think about the price differently depending on where we are in the market. You have seen that in the United States, the new President Biden has done some additional restrictions in the oil and gas industry.
Yeah.
And that makes an asset, or the assets that Torchlight has, even more valuable. So if you announce a dividend today, you're shooting yourself in the foot, as they say. We, on the meta side, could not even predict the price of oil 6 months ago, or where this Biden administration would create potentially additional reasons for the assets to be more valuable. Look at the statistics. It could be $1 to more than $20 according to the analysis. It's difficult to predict where it's gonna end up.
Where is Derek?
say 20, that could be also a low number. Like, honestly, today, I know that whatever it was valued at last year, it's more. That's the only thing I can tell you, just based on the price of oil and what the Biden administration has done.
Ooh, acid reflux. Okay, sorry about that. Ooh, I got acid reflux. Holy smokes. And it went up into my sinuses. It's absolutely terrible. What a punishment. Hold on. Holy smokes, I'm dying. According to this article, there is a few key takeaway points. The dividend, there's going to be no dollar amount attached to this until after the assets are sold. MMTLP sort of threw a wrench in that plan, because the assets were supposed to already be in their own little preferred share world squirreled away. Then they would announce it. And too late. Haha, I can't get those shares. But MMTLP threw a wrench. So now Oilco offers what's called a take two. A redo. Electric Boogaloo. Whatever you want to distinguish the sequel. Maybe it's going to be like Aliens. James Cameron is master of the sequel. As I tell people, you have Aliens. Terminator 2. He is master of the sequel. Once everything goes to Oilco, it's then the dollar amount can be announced once the assets are sold. Or perhaps it will before everything goes into Oilco. Before everything goes into Oilco, maybe a dollar amount will be announced on the dividend. But we are waiting for Oilco. John Berta says these next few weeks will be easy. Wait and see. According to this by George Pelicaris, they had 6 months to sell the asset. Of course, that didn't work out because MMTLP threw a wrench in plans. Oilco and the drilling started, suspiciously. It started about a month after the merger. The Hudspeth did. The drilling started in October. Why didn't it start in August? Were they waiting for a buyer and then they could show this buyer? If you listen to that audio clip, George Pelicaris says buyers. Different interests. Each buyer has their different interests in the property. And they're top tier. I know a lot of people want Exxon stock. Exxon is doing their share buyback right now. They're share repurchasing. And John Berta does want a stock sale. This sort of all lines up. Oilco, the spin-out of Oilco was realized sometime between May, after that audio clip, and when it was filed. And add into the fact now that the drilling started sometime after Hudspeth and Oilco were filed, because this lines up with the end of the Q3 earnings statements with those oil companies. The timeline is sort of kind of piecing together now, so to speak. Once we have gathered all this information and we've laid it out in a linear timeline, it's starting to all come together. And yes, with the realization that Oilco is indeed take two on all this. And then probably the new record date for the dividend will be, the shares going into Oilco will be the new record dividend date. But then that eliminates, if you have these private shares, that sort of eliminates, due bill, so to speak. Because if these are private shares and they're not trading, you don't need a due bill anymore. So that saves people a lot of hassle. You don't have to worry about a due bill, because nothing's going to be paid out until after the shares are converted into Oilco, and then those will probably disappear as time goes on. My big question, though, remains, why did Meta wait until after the shareholder meeting to announce the Oilco spinoff? They could release about the drilling update, because that really didn't pertain to any stock directly. Any allocation of the stock directly. So they could release the drilling update. But did they have to wait to release the Oilco because of that subpoena? Those two might go hand in hand. And if that's the case, again, this is speculation. If that's the case, then basically Oilco allows us for torchlight to dividend time, where it's going to be reannounced, as Mark says in this email. There's going to be a new date, so they're going to reannounce the record date. That gives the oil companies, top tier oil companies, time to buy back the shares, do the share repurchase program. They beat earnings. That gives companies like Texas Pacific Land Trust time. They are doing some share buyback too, by the way. They're doing some share buyback. I know a lot of people would love to have Exxon and TPL in their portfolio. Having a stock sale has a couple of benefits. It's a non-taxable event. So when you recalculate dividend price, you don't have to take out corporate tax. If it's all stock, there's no corporate tax. That makes a higher dividend for you. You can thus keep the stock and get your, quarterly dividends. Or you can sell it and get your cash and reinvest in Meta. If you have multiple companies, a massive sell-off isn't going to create one big drop. If you have multiple companies buying this, you're going to have some people who want to keep it for the dividends and sell some, but it's going to be spread out. It's going to be distributed enough where it wouldn't cause too much of a drop for one particular company. Okay, in the long-awaited moment that a lot of people have been hounding me for, but this particular instance creates something really unique. If you have like 3 or 4 or 5 different companies buying these properties, there's 2 properties, and if you take the bigger property, the Oro Grande, and you cut it up into smaller chunks, you can then sell the chunks for higher amounts. And that area will get developed quicker because now there's more companies in there. And the risk and all the costs aren't associated with one company. So that's very advantageous. And then, some people can choose to keep the shares, sell the shares. The risk of a big share drop is distributed among other companies. So when this is announced in the dividend, then, hey, we're getting stock. The brokerages might then tell the short sellers, time to pay up, and you either have cash or you have to go get the stock, right? You have to get cash or the stock. Well, now the dividend is stock in other companies. Does this mean that short sellers have to now go on an Easter egg hunt, so to speak, and go buy up stock in all these other companies? If that's the case, there might be something where you get stocks in those companies and shorts have to go buy them while they're cheap, so to speak, and then that price goes up for you. And that could work out for your advantage. You could sell the stock a little bit higher. Also, remember, these shares aren't being diluted. There was a share buyback program, as oil companies often have. So, it's not like they're creating new shares. It's getting diluted. They're buying back those shares, and then they're going to reissue them. That avoids share dilution with oil companies. As a result, the prices could go up quicker. I think it'll be interesting if short sellers do have to cover on this. Will they have an Easter egg hunt? That's really a unique new situation. I'll have to look into it, or maybe you can point me in the direction of any cases that have had something similar where they issue, stock in the buying company. That's your dividend. And then people who shorted that have to go get that stock in the company. That would be like an Easter egg hunt for short sellers. That could be fun. Again, this is speculation, but that's how I see it. While this whole debacle of the Metamaterials Torchlight merger and trying to get the dividend has certainly not been an easy journey. And the boogeyman has caused a lot of delays. I'm sure oil executives are quietly just nodding their head at the extra time to, dot T's and cross I's here. At the fact that they now have time, and it was realized that, yeah, we can repurchase shares, we beat earnings, price of oil is rising. This works into our favor long term. Still, my conviction's high. Despite all this, my conviction is high because it has been Torchlight's goal. Pre-meta was to sell this asset. Pre-meta, that was Torchlight's goal. And this audio clip that was leaked from May, again, this study was done last year, COVID. That's why 20 was a low number, as he explains, because the study was done last year. They have multiple buyers. The only thing that's really changed was MMTLP trading. And we just have to wait for that to go away. And it goes away, and at this point in time, it goes away in just about a month. Today's December 12th. It goes away in about a month. We'll get our first update in 2 weeks just after Christmas, maybe, about the drilling completion. You might get it before, about the drilling completion. So I'm looking forward to at least the first step of this. Again, my conviction remains high. I'm not backing down. It's fine. It's okay to cry. It's okay to be upset. You get back on that horse. I've fallen off horses. Let me put in a video here of me riding a horse and eating dirt, so to speak. Watch this. Okay, that was like, hey, look, I fall off that horse. You get on the horse. That was just the horse tripped. I was, loping on the horse and he tripped. But I've been on horses where they jump around and you go, wah! Or my one horse, she stops. When she does not slide or slow down, you're at a full run and you say stop unless you are properly seated. She teaches you how to have a good seat. I'll say that. She teaches you how to really sit in the saddle when a horse stops. Sliding horse, no problem after her. When she stops, she stops on a dime. It's crazy. And if you're not on, you will go boop. Happened many times. You fall off the horse, you get back on. But my conviction remains high. The goal was there to sell the oil this entire time. Pre-meta. The audio clips, again, there's multiple buyers. And a lot of companies are indeed buying stock. The waiting works out to our advantage because lots of companies are doing stock repurchasing right now. It sucks having to wait a few extra weeks. But it gives more time for this to work out to our advantage. And when it does happen, it might be very quick. Well, I will keep you guys updated. And I think that's the exciting conclusion up to date for MMTLP investigation. I'm at the 40-minute mark right now, and I must edit it down. I will see you guys soon. Goodbye.